Hallway cash crisis. We're talking about Venezuela once again. Systemic important banks.
They removed the one factor
called monetary just go back in time a little bit. A couple months ago when I did a video in reference to the gentleman right here, Mr. Neil Woodford. He's a fund manager in Britain, and over the summer, as a result of all the liquidity issues in the system, there started to be a run on some of his investments. So out of panic, he decided to freeze all account activity. Therefore, people were technically trapped into the system because they couldn't withdraw their funds. And so I wanted to revisit that because there's been some more recent developments out of this story dealing with this gentleman here, and how over the last couple of days, give or take a week, the fund has lost even more money. So that's hundreds of thousands of people that's technically trapped into the system because they can't get their funds out of fear that once the fund opened back up and they're allowed to have access to their funds, they're going to withdraw it, causing a massive run on all the financial products that his company and others like it have offered, given the fact that they are all risky assets.
Next recession.
Recession will be a recession.
We're going to hit a recession.
The date of the next recession.
A U.S.-only recession typically lasts 8 to 10 months.
A crash is coming. Now, whether it's 6 months from now, 12 months, 36 months, no one knows.
If you have the right plan to set up, you can make a lot of money from this.
Here's the actual video from back in July. Got about 3,800 views where I talked about the liquidity crisis and how it's causing problems for that same gentleman there. So as of recently, there's been some developments I wanted to share with you guys, as well as a lot of other stories I'll probably get to if I can. So here's a story that came out on the 6th of October. It said, Neil Woodford's stricken fund has tumbled 20% in value since May. I'm going to thumb through it briefly and then leave you some information down below so you can read the exact same thing. But I think it's very important to take a look at this because this is an example of people who invested in a fund that was promising 2 years ago, but yet due to all the monetary policy and things currently underway now, the lower the rates go and the riskier the holding bonds become, it makes it very difficult for fund managers to actually live up to the promises of 6, 7, 8% returns on investments. So they're forced to go into more riskier assets. And so this is a primary example of what's occurring that we know about. But as I mentioned in the video I did over the summer, there's probably tons more funds that are in similar situations as this. But yet because majority of the public have no real concern or not really interested in really diving deep into their fund managers as well as all the products they spun out, the status of those things, there hasn't been any awakening period yet to where people question and go look to try to withdraw at an alarming amount. Because think about this, there's never opportunity really where people can actually come to the realization that things are problematic and all start to head towards the exit, before the exit doors are closed and chained shut, therefore keeping people trapped into the system. So I'll thumb through it briefly, read more for yourself. It says, Neil Woodford's stricken equity income fund has shrunk 20% in 4 months as more than a dozen holdings have tumbled in value, inflicting further harm on the hundreds of thousands of investors trapped in the vehicle since its June suspension. It says the fund dropped 2.93 billion last week, 2.93 billion pounds last week, meaning the UK's best known stock picker has lost 3/4 of the assets he's managed at the height of his business 2 years ago. It's quoted as saying, there may be some investors that decide to ride out any volatility, but whether there will be enough assets left after the reopening for the company to continue as a going concern remains to be seen. It says equity income has lost 1/5 of its value since May 31st, the last day investors were able to withdraw their money. So May 31st was the last time people were able to withdraw their funds. And like always, I would imagine that the people who are higher net worth individuals, those that might be on the board or closest to those on the board and all that, and the higher echelon of things, they knew what was coming. They could smell the writing on the wall a long time before May 31st. And they probably were allowed to liquidate and to get out. But yet, the people who don't pay attention to what is going on are the ones that tend to get trapped into this system. So give you more idea here. It says during that time, its benchmark, the FTSE All Share Index, has been flat. Peer funds in its Morningstar category lost 0.7% during the period, while other famed British equity managers Nick Train and Terry Smith returned 1.7% and 4% respectively in their flagship funds. So just those numbers itself, 1.7% and 4%, I would imagine aren't really enough funds to keep pace with that 6, 7, 8%, which typical funds have been known to return over the last decades prior to this new environment we're in now, where central banks guarantee liquidity, therefore causing problems in actual valuations of companies and things of that nature. And so it says equity income was once one of the UK's largest funds, reaching 10.2 billion of assets and attracting hundreds of thousands of investors, almost 300,000 of whom did so through the popular Hargreaves Lansdowne Fund supermarket. So almost 300,000 people once upon a time. Not sure what the current number is now, but it's good to say it's well less than 300,000, but still several hundred thousand. So I wanted to take a minute to just share this article here because I think it's very telling where we're currently at now. And not only do we have all the situations with central banks, I'm going to definitely touch on that in a minute. Could you imagine being trapped in a system for the last several months and watching your portfolio dwindle, watching your funds that you put in there dwindle, and you can't even go in there and withdraw? So you're forced to endure the pain of watching those numbers drop. And what makes it even more interesting is we're not even in a recession yet, according to the powers that be. And so if you're watching your funds dwindle because of sheer panic alone, imagine what happens when the markets tumble as a result of a recession, borderline, whatever comes after that. So once again, it's a very heartwarming story where people who did the right thing, they put money aside, they invested it with people who are credible in that industry because they have a great reputation. But once again, that person, Neil Woodford's reputation is irrelevant in an environment where monetary policy has hijacked sound financial and economic operations. So thought I would just share this. More important, as always, if you find this informative, which it definitely is, make sure you give us a thumbs up and share this video here so people can find out and might do a little bit of homework on their own to find out where their money's parked at and who it's with and what their economic status is at this current point. Because once again, it's not until it's time to exit do people realize that the chains are already been placed on the door and you can't get out in time. So other than that, leave a comment down below. Look forward to reading your thoughts. Thanks.